Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, let's pull up this screen. Going to talk about Finebaum, who's saying the Alabama Dynasty might be over. We're also going to talk about how Tennessee played a role in that, if it's true or not. And then we also have a special interview with Paul Finebaum, believe it or not. This is like his second or third time on the channel. He just keeps coming on, surprises me. But we're going to ask him some difficult questions. And this article is actually on Roll Tide Wire, and there's several articles about this. Finebaum comments about Nick Saban. It says college football is caught up to Bama, and he says several other things as well. And the article goes on and says everybody's got something to say about Alabama Crimson Tide and their loss to LSU, and of course their loss earlier to Tennessee. It says Finebaum saying only one national title in the last 5 seasons, that he's losing his fastball, that is Saban. He also says, I think college football has caught up to Alabama. And then another article, like I said, there's a lot of articles about this. He talks about how Clemson and Alabama's dynasty windows are closing. And, of course, it talks about how Clemson always has a better path than Alabama because of the very weak ACC, and that's for sure, especially when you only get 4 teams in. It says Notre Dame is the Achilles heel. And Notre Dame's not been that good this year, but they're starting to play better. But look, Clemson was terrible this year. They were as average as I've ever seen them play, and they've really, had they played in the SEC, they'd have been a 500 ball club. You know, they kind of look to me like a Arkansas or South Carolina this year. They've just been very middle of the road. He talks about how getting eliminated from the national championship race really plays a role on how a lot of people are seeing this as maybe the beginning of the end for Alabama. So this team doesn't look like it used to during the pinnacle of the Saban era. He talks about all the penalties that Alabama's had this year and how they had 12 men on the field, even after a timeout to put a bow on the questionable night of coaching moves by Saban. Says it feels like the dynasty window is closing. It feels like this season has taken a turn, and I can't calculate what is going on in Nick Saban's mind, but he looks miserable. He does look unhappy, and part of that's because the team is undisciplined and he's not used to that. Says what I hear from my Alabama friends is we need to fire the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator. He said normally you talk about that when a coach is in a transition, not somebody that's been there for 15 years. But what I've noticed with Nick Saban, I don't think he likes the NIL money. I think that's what's really at the root of this problem for him. He's slowly turned to being in favor of it because he's got no choice. But he didn't like it to begin with, and I think he fought it so much that he got a little bit behind the 8 ball because Texas A&M came in and kind of got a bunch of players that he wanted. Now, granted, that hadn't worked out for Texas A&M, but he does not like paying the players because it puts them on a much more of a level playing field with him. And then you've got the transfer rule where you can immediately transfer the next year. And he hates that as well because he can't discipline the players the way he used to. Because if he gets on them and they're a 4 or 5 star, they can say, you know what, I don't have to put up with this crap. Not only that, there's more money at this other school. So I'll go make the Benjamins and I won't have to take a bunch of crap. So Nick Saban's over there going, I can't be the guy I normally am, so I can't keep the discipline like I need it. So we're having all of these penalties over and over, and they're the most highly penalized team in the country, that is so not Nick Saban, it's not even funny. He's usually one of the lowest penalized teams. The discipline's not there, and it's costing them games. It really is. It cost them the game at Tennessee, and the crowd noise played a big role in that, and we just got a taste of that at Sanford Stadium ourselves. But they're making a lot of penalties that are just stupid. And I think it's about driving him crazy. So I don't think he's having as much fun as he used to, and it's playing a role. So let's see what Paul Finebaum did. I actually recorded this with my phone because CBS and ESPN are, they freak out about copyright stuff. So I pulled off some little clippets here that I think we can discuss.
We all know Nick Saban turned 71 this week. Everyone's looking for signs. Whispers that this is not a diminished Nick Saban, but there's a fraction of difference between this year and last year and the year before.
All right, so part of it is his age. He is 71 years old now, and look, this is not being a senator or something like that seems like a really hard job, but you have 100 people to do it for you and you just vote every once in a while. This is the head coach of a major university where you've got to constantly be recruiting 365 days a year. You've got to keep discipline with 95 huge egos. Understand, every one of those players at Alabama was a stud at their high school. They were number one. And they come in and look, they have to be dealt with on a daily basis. And if you ignore them and they're not getting playing time, you're going to have a problem. So he's got to deal with 95 personalities. He's got all these coaches that are used to doing things their way. A lot of them were head coaches. He's got boosters galore that all want to be in his ear. He's trying to run Mercedes dealerships, which he owns, and that takes time. I can tell you, running a regular business like what he's doing, you got to show up for meetings. You got to do things like that. You're going to have phone calls, all kinds of things. Then he's got tons of commercials, as you know.
Aflac.
That's right, Aflac.
Where's the doctor's boy?
I mean, this is a busy dude, extremely busy, and he's 71, and he's slowing down. Everybody slows down when they get older. This is not an old man's game. It really isn't. And especially with the NIL money, now you've got boosters involved. I mean, it is something. And the pressure at Alabama to play well and win is incredible. You've seen how these Bama fans are. I mean, they've lost 2 games, and they're ready to fire the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator, which is unbelievable. 2 games, and they lost by 1 score in each one at the last play of the game. The Tennessee game, which kind of, I don't know if that was the leak in the dam, so to speak, but the dam kind of broke open there. Then LSU did the same thing, and they almost got beat by Texas early in the year until their quarterback for Texas got hurt. They almost got beat by a terrible Texas A&M team. Granted, they didn't have Bryce Young in there, but they still almost got beat by a really bad Texas A&M team. That came down to last play. So you can see this is not quite as good a team as he is used to having. He doesn't have the wide receivers he's used to like he's had in the past, and he's got the best quarterback in the country, in my opinion, and they're struggling, and Georgia's not. Georgia is not struggling at all, and Paul Finebaum even said, if you want to know what Bama looked like 10 years ago, look at Georgia, that's pretty accurate. And here's one other comment that he made.
He's disgruntled about the condition of college football.
Right.
He hates it. And I don't care what he says about NIL. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like giving players freedom.
Yeah, he doesn't like it, and I totally agree with that. He's complained about it and complained about it. He got into a huge shouting match with Texas A&M by accusing them of buying players. Well, guess what? With NIL money, you kind of can. Granted, it's not coming from the college, but it's coming from boosters, which is almost the same thing. And Birmingham doesn't have as much money as Texas does. They don't have giant oil tycoons running around that were former graduates of Alabama the way that Texas A&M and Texas might. So there's a lot more money in Texas, and it's a problem for Alabama. And look, Bama's still recruiting great. I'm not saying Nick Saban's not going to come back next year and be great. I just don't think he looks happy. I don't think he is happy, and he's having to coach very differently than he's used to. And that's not easy for a 71-year-old man who's had nothing but success, and I mean huge success. So we'll see if he's able to adjust to it. In the past, he's been able to by changing his offense, as you know. But I think it's going to be a struggle for him, and I see him moving towards retirement over the next few years. And he can't come out and say, look, I'm going to retire in 3 or 4 years, because that would hurt his recruiting. But he's got to be thinking about it. I mean, how would you not be? And I do have a special interview with Paul Finebaum. He's agreed to come on the channel, and so we're going to see what he has to say. Now, let me check. Have you got him? Okay, he's in his own studio. Okay, but we're linked. Okay. Now, Paul, I got to ask you, and he can hear. Can you hear me? He can. Paul, I got to ask you. Now, you came out and said something that's very incendiary, and it's going to get Alabama folks all tore up, and it's really created a ripple. I mean, you've even got ESPN, Stephen A. Smith going crazy over it, who's a huge Bama fan. So, I mean, what was your thinking when you threw that hand grenade in there like that? Well, hello there, Sports Talk Jay. Paul Finebaum here. I'm glad to be on your channel again. I sure do enjoy being on it. I got to tell you, look, I work for ESPN, and I'm going to throw as many hand grenades as I can possibly throw. I know Nick Saban, and I'm telling the truth. He is not happy. He doesn't like paying the players. He doesn't like having total control. He doesn't like the transfer rules. He doesn't like any of that crap, okay? Because he is losing control of the situation. I think that's why the team is having so many penalties all the time, and it's really created a problem. So I really think that's the deal. and he's got to be thinking about retirement, which I know that's going to make a lot of Alabama fans very angry. But look, you can't coach for the rest of your life until you're 100. Once you get in your 70s, you slow down. I can tell you for myself, I've slowed down a lot, but I'm not having to coach 95 players and also keep about 17 other dishes spinning all the time like he is. This guy's workload is off the charts. So that's really what I was talking about there. And I know it's going to get everybody upset, but hey, you know what? That's just life. I work for ESPN, and stirring the pot is what I do, baby. That is what I do. And if I got to go on there with Stephen A. Smith and get him all fired up, which is not hard to do, I'm going to do it. So just count on it. Well, all right there, Mr. Finebaum. I appreciate it. What? Call you Paul? Okay, Paul. No problem. I know it's like we're buddies now. All right. Well, anyway, it's good to talk to you. I appreciate you coming on the show. And I can't believe we got the actual Paul Finebaum. I mean, it looked just exactly, well, it was him. That's why. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, I think he pretty much spelled it out. Now, as far as UT playing a role in this, look, we were the first chink in the armor. You know, we beat them here at Neyland Stadium, and I think that played a role in this. I think it certainly did, and got them going down a bad path because they'd been kind of hanging on. And the thing about Alabama, as they always say, hey, they were still winning. They were finding ways to win. Well, they weren't able to do that at Neyland. And then LSU pulled off a great victory. And, you know, the reality is they're that close to being undefeated, but they're not. And they also could have 4 losses. And that's not normal for an Alabama team. You can't say that about Georgia. The only game they almost lost was to Missouri, and they killed Missouri in the second half. So I think Bama's got some things to think about. And look, you know, like I say, the guy can't coach forever, and he's been he's been the best coach ever in college football. That's all there is to it. Been the very best coach. And there's really nobody that's been close. With 6 national titles, he won one at LSU as well, so 7. Nobody's, you know, the guy's crazy. He's the John Wooden of college football. So Tennessee, I think, played a role. And, of course, Tennessee still got a chance to be in the college football playoff, and I think they will get in. They've got to win these next 3 games. They've got to beat Missouri, South Carolina, and Vandy. Missouri, Saturday at noon. And I'm going to tell you something. I think Tennessee's going to show up with blood in their eyes, and they're going to be so fired up. And I think the crowd, even though it's at noon, I think they're going to be going nuts. And I can tell you, Missouri's going to have their hands full like you can't believe, because Tennessee's angry, and they're going to show up like this.
You called down the thunder, well, now you got it.
You tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Yeah, absolutely they are. And I can tell you, Missouri is going to realize they're probably not in Kansas anymore.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be real tough on them. All right, folks, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I'd certainly appreciate it. I mean, how many chances are you going to get to see the real Paul Finebaum? Anyway, I hope you did like the content. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.